If your ads are underperforming, don't panic, because most profitable ad campaigns start exactly like this. I've helped over 50 coaches generate over $1 million in revenue with one simple, predictable ad process that doesn't involve the typical funnel or any complex tech. And the real problem with your ads isn't your ads, it's that you don't know what the numbers are trying to tell you. So you keep guessing, tweaking random things, and very simply burning money. Today, I'm going to show you the exact process that I use to turn a dying ad campaign into a hyper profitable one in just a matter of minutes, so that you can stop wasting leads and start getting clients and printing money predictably. So let's get into the first step of how to solve this. Now, it's very simple. The first thing that you need to be doing is something which most people don't. You need to track your numbers. Now, if your ads are underperforming right now and you are not tracking, here's your number one reason why, and I've just solved 90% of your issues. What you need to be tracking when you're running ads, very simply, is your cost per click, your cost per lead, your cost per booked call, and your cost per acquisition. Those are always your most important metrics, and I'll explain those properly in a moment. But the reason that tracking ads is so important is because ads is just a numbers game. That is all ads is. Ads is maths. All you're doing with your adverts is you're putting money into the ad system and you're finding out how much you will get back out from putting that amount in. Okay, and that is why you see most people talking about a return on ad spend, a ROAS, and they say I've got a 7x. Because they understand and they've built a process where they know where if they put £1, $1 in, they will get 7 out. Right, and that is all ads are, is your tracking. And so the biggest mistake that I see people making when they're trying to fix underperforming campaigns is they haven't really understood or tracked their numbers. And so by doing this, you don't actually know what you're supposed to be fixing or where you're supposed to be looking. So the first thing you have to do is to track. So let me show you now what you should be tracking and how a tracker should look. So this down here is an example of actually my advertising tracker of October of this year, just for one of my campaigns, right? So let me see, make this all in frame. So as you can see, this is what I'm tracking when I'm running ads. And without this tracker, I wouldn't know what's working and what isn't working. So let me break down and explain to you what's going on here. So you can see here, if I just move this across, I started these campaigns on the 13th of October. Okay, you can see that I started my budget, how much I spent. If you're wondering what the drop off is here, that's simply because I had some technical issues on the ads manager side, so I had to relaunch them and started this particular campaign again in November. But this is just one of the campaigns I've run in this month that I properly tracked. So as you can see, I spent £2,000. My CPM was £35. This isn't a metric I worry too much about. I'm looking at my cost per click and my click-through rate, right? So you want your click-through rate to be above 1%. Click-through rate, cost per click doesn't matter too much. Cost per lead and opt-in rate, you want your opt-in rate to be at least 10 to 15% at the minimum. Mine was 18. Your cost per booked call, I'll explain to you in a moment how to do that. Mine was well under what it could be. And as you can see, my cost per acquisition was only £488. So by me tracking these numbers and these metrics, it helps me to understand what's actually working and what's not. And as you can see here, on this particular campaign that I ran in October, just one of them, I put 1.9k pounds in and I got £17,000 back out. In dollars, that's probably around $20,000. Now, everybody needs a tracker like this. Regardless of where you are in your journey, you need to be tracking your numbers and your metrics. Now, if you haven't been tracking and you need a tracker, just follow me on Instagram and DM me tracker. I'll send you this over so you can start using it for yourself. But let's actually understand what we're looking for here. And this is all you need to do to fix your underperforming campaigns, by the way. This is the only thing that matters to making your campaigns work and to getting them back on track. Okay, so your ad spend. Obviously, your ad spend budget, you just want to set something that you can maintain currently. Okay, don't set a budget of like £1,000 a day if you've only got £2,000 in your bank account. Okay, do something that you can maintain for at least a month. Now, I'll explain shortly how you can make these, how you can actually mathematically understand your spend, but you always just have to start somewhere. So what you should be doing, like I say, is understanding the numbers to dissect the issue. So let's understand. So as we're going through this tracker, if our clicks are really low, and they're below 1%, our click-through rate. The cost per click doesn't matter too much, but if our click-through rate is below 1%, what that is telling us is our adverts are not giving people enough reason or enough curiosity to want them to get to click. Okay, they're not seeing enough value in clicking. Now, don't forget, the purpose of an ad is that you are exchanging value in return for somebody, a potential customer, to click on that ad and sort of raise their hand to show you that they are a potential customer. Okay, so if your click-through rate's really low, what this tells us is there's an issue with your adverts. So what you need to do is obviously on the ads manager, you can easily track all of this, is fill in all of these metrics for your ad campaigns and understand what your click-through rate is. Like I say, if your click-through rate on the low end, it could be about 0.8%, but if it's below 0.8% and nobody's clicking onto your landing page or nobody's clicking onto your lead form, whatever type of ads you're doing, then you know that your issue is with your ads. And if your ads are underperforming, this is the first area that you would work on if this is your case. Look at why is your click-through rate so low? And again, what your type of things you're looking for in the ad is it clear as to what the value and benefit is to that person of clicking? Is it clear what problem and goal the thing on the next page is going to alleviate for them? Is it creating curiosity? And are your ads similar and the same to everybody else's? If they are, that's when you need to start making a change. Now, if we look at the next element of what's important, your opt-in rate should be at least 10 to 15%, as I said. Your cost per lead, to be honest with you, doesn't matter too much. The main thing that you need to be looking at with your leads is actually the quality rather than the quantity. Because I could have a campaign here where my cost per lead is £1 and I'm getting fantastic leads and I'm over the moons with them, with the amount of volume, but they're all people who would never be able to work for me and don't have the budget, then it doesn't matter. So you're more worried about the quality. Now, how you define the quality of a lead is when you interact with this specific lead and you speak to them and you understand their situation, their problems and their goals, if they're not somebody that you can help and if they're constantly somebody that doesn't have a budget, then they are a bad lead. Now, in terms of how to fix this element in terms of the leads, right? Your cost per lead, if you're making a good offer, will always be sort of between 20 pence to like £15 depending. And if it's in that range, I know that's quite a big range, you are okay. Most of the people and the coaches that I help, their cost per lead is around the £1 mark on the high end, right? But essentially what you need to look at if your leads aren't great is number one, your customer levels of awareness. So is your advert and what you're offering to this particular person, what level of awareness are you speaking to? Are you speaking to somebody who doesn't really understand that they have a problem? Or are you speaking to a lead who understands that they have a problem and is looking for a solution? So what you really need to do is map out these levels of awareness. So that's realistically where you want to start with that, is understanding, are you speaking to the customer who is aware of their problems and is looking for help? Right? Those are always going to be the best quality leads. Then as well as that, you need to look at what you're offering in your ad. So in your ad, you're probably offering some form of lead magnet or something to capture that person's attention. Again, different lead magnets, different offers are going to resonate with different types of people and different people in different stages of their journey. So let me give you an example. One of my ads before, I did a social media audit for coaches where I looked at their social media and told them why their marketing wasn't working. Now that attracted for me only beginners because it was only people who were just setting up on social media and wanted help. And although it brought me a lot of leads at a very low cost, they weren't great leads. However, when I switched my campaigns and I actually started speaking about my funnel-less advertising approach, which is what I do, I don't use the typical funnels, then I attracted more advanced buyers because these were buyers who had tried a solution before, were aware that they had a problem and knew that funnels didn't work and they needed a different solution. Right, so really take some time to think about that when you're looking at your leads. Now, in terms of your bookings, right? Now, your call booking rate, you want it at least to be 1%. As you can see here, I've got a super high call booking rate here, which is 13%. That's because I've got everything really optimized and dialed in. If you've got it at 1% and you're getting a higher volume of leads, then that's perfect. Now, in terms of what you're looking for when you're tracking your cost per booked call, let me just quickly scroll down and explain this to you. So the way to understand what your target cost per booked call should be to help you when you decide if ads are underperforming is simple. So first of all, you take your highest price point. So for example, 5K, right? Then you divide that by 2. So that equals 2.5K, right? And then you divide this number by 10. Now I'll explain why we're doing this in a moment, and that is 250. Apologize for that writing. What that means is your target cost per booked call on your tracker can afford to be $250, pounds, whatever currency you're in. And what that then means is you will get at least a 2x return on your ads. Why? You're asking, well, if you have 10 calls with a bad conversion rate, you should at least close 1 in 10. So 1 out of 10 will get you 1 sale at 5K, and that means you would have spent 2.5K. So you'll make 2.5K profit. Now, yes, that isn't amazing, fantastic, but this is the way to understand your target metrics for your cost per booked call. Is to understand what is the highest amount you could pay to get 10 calls in the calendar and to close 1. And that's what you're sort of aiming for. So then what that means for you is when you are then tracking your numbers here and you're looking at your data, you want to understand your cost per booked call, which is here for me. It should be at the maximum, that number that I've put below. So again, for me, as you can see, my highest thing at the moment is £5,500. So my target cost per booked call can be similar to this, probably a little bit more, probably 275. Now I'm well under that. So these ads and the bookings are exactly where I want them to be. Now, if you're somebody where you're a little bit unsure about your bookings and maybe you're struggling to book in calls and your cost per booked call isn't where you want it to be, then number one, have a look at the quality of the leads. And if the leads are bad, I've already told you how to fix that. Number two, have a look at your conversion process, because this is then when it goes away from the ads. Because from here onwards, right, from this point onwards, from here, everything on this side of the line is to do with your conversion rather than your adverts. Because if you're happy with your leads, that people are clicking and it's getting decent reach, then everything on this side is all about your conversion process. So if your cost per booked call is not where you want it to be and you're not booking in calls in the calendar, then, like I say, first of all, look at your conversion process. Have you got a proper process in place to follow up with leads and get them booked in? If not, that's something worth looking at. And here's the other thing, right? If you're booking in calls but it doesn't feel like enough, that's obviously an emotional response. This is why you track. You have a look, are your metrics where they should be? And if your metrics are where they should be, then that's how you know that your ads are actually doing okay, rather than letting the emotion come in. Because like I say, that's a big piece of what I see with adverts, is the emotional side. But if you take a step back and look at your numbers and understand the data and what's going on, like I say, if this data is where it should be and it's within your targets, then it's okay to keep it running, especially if the leads are good quality. So that's what to do with the booking side. Understand if the leads are good, it's all about conversion, it's not about the ads. And then track the numbers to make sure that you are where you need to be. And if they are where they need to be, then you keep the ads running. And again, some people define underperforming ads as they're not getting enough calls, but they don't actually track this number and intimately understand it. And so because of that, then they make emotional decisions and then come to the conclusion that their ads aren't working. This is really important to understand. Now, the next piece of the puzzle is obviously sales. Now, here's the thing with the sales side of your ads and underperforming, because obviously you're running ads to get sales through the door. Now, if you haven't optimized all of these other steps over here that we've just spoke about, then sales won't happen anyway. But once you have optimized all of this, and this is something I see commonly, and you're getting lots of leads and you're booking lots of calls, the sales has nothing to do with the ads at that point, right? Because everything's in check, right? Your leads are good quality. Yep. You're booking in calls with your target cost per booked call. Check. And the calls are obviously going to be good because we know the leads are quality. Then everything that's going here on this side of the tracker to do with how many units you're selling is only to do with your sales. And so this is a massive thing that I see people doing, is they don't properly track the data, first of all. They don't properly then understand the lead quality. And then what will be happening is that they're getting great leads, they're booking lots of calls in, but nobody's converting, and they're going, my ads aren't working. And then because of that, they turn off the ads, they make this emotional decision, and then they're back to square one and they've lost all of their progress. So this is really important to reflect on. Because if you're getting good calls in and when you're on the call with that person, you know you can help them, but you're not converting them, it's nothing to do with the adverts, it's everything to do with yourself. So I'd really invite you to take a moment to take a step back and reflect on yourself and your sales calls and whether you can improve. Now, the reason I say this is because I thought I was good at sales, right? And there was a point in my journey where this number here, my close percent, so as you can see here, calls closed, I'm closing 31% at the moment. There was a point where this number for me was 10%. And I knew I was leaving tons of money on the table. And for me, I felt like, oh my God, I'm wasting money on my campaigns, my ads aren't working, blah, blah, blah. But what I did instead of making that emotional, rational decision of going to turn these off and change all of this when everything was as it should be, what I instead did was I went and invested in myself and in my sales training. And by investing in my sales training and growing on that, this number increased by 20%. So what that means is with the exact same ads, I was making 3 times more sales, which means I was making 3 times more money, and I tripled my income. So this is really, really important to understand. Now, the last piece of this puzzle really for anybody watching this is once you've got all of this in place, right? Your cost per lead, let me zoom in a little bit. Your cost per lead is where you want it to be. Your cost per booked call is on target. The leads are good quality also, which means the bookings are good quality. You understand your close rate. Then after that, the most important number you're ever going to look at on your advertising tracker is this one right down here, right? Your CPA. CPA means cost per acquisition. So what that means is how much do you have to spend on ads to acquire a customer? Because all you're doing when you're advertising is you are buying a customer off of the platforms that you're advertising on. That's all you're doing. So this number essentially means to you, how much do you need to spend to buy a customer? It's literally as simple as that, okay? So what you then need to do from that point is decide how much money you want to make, pretty much. So let me explain how I would do it in this instance. So I spent 1.9k, I returned 17k, and my CPA was £488, right? So all that means for me now is, how many customers do I want in a month? Okay, so if I want 10 customers in a month, I just times this number by 10. And so what that means is, if my ad spend for the month, I put it to 4880, which is that number times 10, I should get 10 customers, okay? And with those 10 customers, that will equal to me, if I sell all of them at my top package, 55k for the month. Now again, like I said, this wasn't my full return on ad spend for this month, because this was just one campaign that I was tracking. I have another tracker for the other campaigns I was doing. But this just shows, with this campaign in particular, what I could have done to make my income this, okay? So that is essentially all you are doing when you are advertising. And this is how to fix underperforming ads. It's intimately understanding the numbers. It's not really ever much to do with the actual ad itself. Like, writing a good ad and getting it out to the right person is usually the easiest part. The hardest part is understanding this bit to help you to grow and to help you make them perform. Because the other thing is, a lot of people, a lot of the time, have performing ads but don't realize they're performing because they're not tracking. So I hope you found that useful. I hope that helped you to show how I would go about fixing underperforming adverts. This is the exact process that I use, and I help all of my clients to use who are coaches. So if you're somebody who's running currently advertising campaigns, they're not performing exactly how you'd like them to, and you want a bit of help and guidance in terms of how do you actually convert these campaigns into more customers and into cash in the bank, then below this video you're going to see a link which has my calendar on, and you can feel free to book a call with me, and it will be with me on one-on-one if you want to see my approach to advertising, how I could help you improve your ads, and how I can help you improve your ads without the typical funnel. So feel free to drop that below, and if you've got any other questions, my Instagram is also there, so feel free to reach out.